All right, welcome back to another episode of the Wealth Building for Dummies podcast. My name is Kyle Demian. As always, I'm joined here with Renji Matthew, and today we're going to be talking about how to future-proof your finances. We're going to talk about 3 or so long-term strategies that have been proven to work and that you should always keep, top of mind when it comes to wanting to make sure that your overall financial well-being is on track. And with that, before we dive in, just want to give a quick disclaimer. Of course, this episode and our entire podcast is intended to be educational and informational only. This is not financial advice. This is not legal advice or tax advice. And by all means, if you guys do have any financial, legal, or tax questions, make sure you consult a licensed professional and meet with them one-on-one. Our podcast is purely for education by two dummies, teaching other dummies how to get better with money and to help you guys build wealth. So thank you guys for hanging out with us. And with this episode, Renji, why don't you kick us off? What is like one thing that people can do to start to future-proof their finances? And we'll kind of just go back and forth on the 3 different topics that we have for today.
So there are several things. One of the things that we talk about how, the foundation of financial future is, protecting yourself with life insurance, right? And that could be just a basic, it could be a term, it could be any type. It really depends on what your goals are. But the whole point of it is, especially if you have student loan debt or if you have any type of debt, you're safeguarding your family from rolling that debt to them when you're gone, right? And on top of that, life insurance is also protecting them from taxes later, because life insurance is one of the only things that passes on to your family that is tax-free. So if you're leaving them with tax-deferred accounts, or let's say you're leaving them with a bunch of wealth, right, which is good, but the life insurance will protect them from extra protection from the tax liabilities and stuff, because if they have a lot of taxes they have to pay, then the life insurance will help, lower that burden on them too. So foundation, we like to say life insurance is a huge part. And even if you're not using, like we said, it could be any type of life insurance, even if you're not using one of the life insurance retirement plans, if you're just putting a life insurance in place to protect your family, it's a huge foundation we like to start with. Any comments on that?
Yeah, I always say that you have to plan for the worst case scenario to make sure that financially you are set and your family is going to be set and protected. Unfortunately, we're all going to pass away at one point. We just don't know when that time is going to be. And even more likely necessarily than us passing away anytime soon is the fact that we're more likely to be hit with, maybe a critical, chronic, or terminal illness, heart attack, stroke, cancer, so many different things that is out there and is a real possibility for majority of people. We'd have to look at the stats, actually. I'd be curious to see like how many or what percentage of people in their life are either have a heart attack or stroke or get cancer. And I would go to say it's probably 50%, if not more. But you could protect yourself from that with certain types of life insurance policies that give you living benefits. Living benefits meaning you don't have to just die for your family to get the death benefit, but you can use the death benefit while you're alive. So when it comes to future-proofing your finances, you can protect yourself from the number one risk that we are all going to face eventually one day, is that we're all going to pass away. And life insurance is a great risk mitigation tool to help you combat that. Now, with life insurance, you did talk about how some of the tax advantages that come with it, and that kind of leads us into our second point is if you want to talk about how to future-proof your finances, we have to analyze the tax environment that we're in today. And what I mean by that is that if you look at historically the income tax rates here in the United States, we're at some of the lowest tax rates that we have ever seen as a country. Now, you take into account that fact that we are in some of the lowest tax rates we've ever been, and then you add on to it that Medicare is struggling with funding, Social Security is running out of money, and the government as a whole is in $35 trillion. That's trillion with a T. We are in $35 trillion of national debt. Where do you guys think taxes are going to go in the future? Most people would say that they're probably going to go up, right? So with that, like if you're saving into 401ks, IRAs, 403bs, TSPs, putting your money into the stock market, I would be careful and I'd be cautious, because what tax rate are you going to pay on that money in the future? And that's a big question mark that we do not know the answer to. So what can you do instead? You can start to save some of your money into tax-free retirement accounts. Roth IRAs are tax-free. Some sorts of types of life insurance can grow and build your money tax-free. You can leverage that. And other than that, like those are really the only two options for growing money tax-free. Some companies offer a Roth 401k, but not all of them. But as far as that goes, Renji, anything else that you want to add on to how people should be preparing for taxes and thinking about their future when it comes to how their money will be taxed when they go to retire later?
Yeah, and I want to rephrase this too. Like, we're not saying 401ks or IRAs are bad things. We're just talking about the tax implications, how it could hurt you. And like Kyle mentioned, we don't know what the taxes are going to be in the future, but we can predict that it might be a lot higher, right? Because, like Kyle said, our national debt is crazy high. So the only way to pay that down is by increasing taxes, because that's the only way the government gets the revenue to pay that debt down. So, with that being said, like Kyle mentioned, life insurance, cash value life insurance is an option. 401k, Roth 401ks, and a lot of companies don't offer this, but if they do, a backdoor Roth is really good too, because you can pay the tax now, and now your limit is not as small as a Roth IRA on a Roth 401k, so you could do more with it. And then there's also, I know a lot of real estate investors that use self-directed IRAs where they use that to invest into real estate or other sorts of passive income. Um, at the end of the day, this is why we talk about passive income a lot, because if you
Yeah.
build your own wealth, not depending on the government and what they're going to do with tax rates and stuff like that, if you build your own wealth with different types of businesses, you're also setting yourself up for success in the future, especially if you don't give up. Um, but I think those are some of the best ways. Is there anything that you could think of other than that? I think you mentioned all of them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and you had another great transition, kind of into our third way to help you future proof your finances. And you mentioned like going into assets and real estate. And that's something that a lot of people tend to overlook. I guess sometimes, but not all the times, but it's just being diversified. And what do I mean by that is just having your money in multiple different accounts. Having some in maybe stocks or bonds or real estate or some cash value life insurance. But most importantly, the idea behind it is you want to manage your risk while still giving you the opportunity for consistent growth over time. So you don't want to have all of your eggs in one basket. I'm sure most people have heard of that saying before, but too often when we talk to people, what do we find, Renji? Most people have all of their eggs in the
Yeah,
stock basket, and maybe they're
yeah,
at too much risk for what they really want to be. And here's the thing, market risk and risk as a whole isn't a bad thing, but too much risk when you're too close to retirement is when that could be detrimental. We've talked about it on past episodes, how people retired at the wrong time and the market took these huge crashes like you've seen in the past. If you're retiring right before these market crashes, that's some of the worst times to retire, and you need to make sure that you have a diversified portfolio. But this just talks about as a whole, what people should look into, should consider, and should keep in mind. And
yeah.
with that, Renji, what else do you have to add as far as being diversified and having money into different investments and asset classes?
Yeah, and like we mentioned before, we're not saying it's one strategy is better than the other. There's different strategies. And if you watch successful business owners or successful people that you might be listening to podcasts of theirs or whatever, they all diversify, right? You hear about a lot of wealthy people getting into real estate, but that's just one portion of their portfolio, right? And there's different things. 401ks are, I mean, whatever account you're putting yourself into, you want to look at what your goal is. If you're talking to a financial advisor that makes you put all your money in one place in the stock market. Think about it. If you're in your 20s or 30s, that might not be a bad thing because you got time. But like Kyle mentioned, if you're close to retirement and all your money is in the stock market, you might want to think about, it's like, hey, how is this beneficial for me? If the market crashes tomorrow, am I still going to be okay to retire in a year, in 2 years, or next week? Right? So if you're diversified in different things, if the market crashes, you're still going to be okay. Right. So this is why we tell people we don't care what you put your money into. I mean, there are, in some cases, some scenarios, some accounts work better for you than others. But again, this is why knowing what your goal is going into those meetings with financial advisors or whoever your financial professional is huge. Because if you know what you want and you communicate that with your financial professional, then they can give you a strategy that actually fits your needs, right? But if they're
Mm-hmm.
wanting to put you all in one thing, you might be wary of that person because they might have ulterior motives, right? So you want to make sure you're diversified in a way that doesn't matter what happens, you're protected in a sense where, okay, if I retire next week or next year, I'm still okay. I can still reach my goal of retiring next year. But if you're all in one place, so this is why we've talked on many different podcasts about this. When you're younger, you can take the risk. You have time. As you get to your 50s and older, you want to diversify in sense where there are IRAs with the floor where it can give you guaranteed lifetime income. So you want to put at least 50% of your things in that, or, depending on your goals again. If you plan to work another 10, 20 years, you might not want to put 50%. But if you plan to retire in the next 5 years or more, hey, you might need 50% into protected accounts so that no matter what the market does, you're not going to lose anything and you can get a guaranteed lifetime income. So again, maybe this is something you have to do on your own. Sit down and figure out, hey, what is my goal? What do I need to get to? And what is my number for retirement? How much do I need to make monthly for my retirement accounts to be able to survive retirement? How much do I need to have to get to that number? So all of these are things that only you can answer for yourself. Now, after you have that, when you sit with your financial professional, you have an idea of what you want, and then maybe they can guide you into the right tools that you can use for a successful retirement, right? But if you go into the meeting with the financial professional and you don't know any of those things, not saying that's a bad thing, because that's why they're there to help you guide through that. But if you don't know any of those things, it's going to be a little bit harder to set a plan in place for you. But if you have some kind of idea, maybe you know how much you need to live off of income wise now while you're working. Maybe when you're retiring, it might be similar, maybe a little bit off. So now at least you have an idea of what you need to pay bills, what you need to live a successful retirement. Then take that to your meeting with your financial professional. That way they can have an idea of, okay, we need to put this much in this type of account. This is the amount you need to save up until retirement so that you can live that life you're talking about. All of those things. So have an idea of where you want to be before, instead of just blindly going into retirement. Because we know so many people we talk to where they're like, oh, I've been saving, I'll be fine. And then they're in retirement, or they're thinking about retiring, but they can't because they don't have enough saved up. So they're working till their 70s or 80s. Or we've talked to several people that are having to go back to work because they ran out of income.
Mm-hmm.
That they thought they would be fine for the rest of their life, but they ran out of income. Or they had some kind of health issue that came up, like Kyle mentioned, and they didn't have the right things in place to help them with that. So they had to deplete their retirement accounts. Now they're having to go back to work. So these are different things to think about. How can you not only have a successful retirement, but also how can you protect yourself from those devastating things that come across life? And how can you protect your family so that they don't have to be dealing with that when you're gone also? So retirement, you have to think about not just you, but also, hey, how many people am I having to provide for, even in retirement, right? All of those things. And even when you're gone.
All very good points and very good questions that need to be answered just to make sure that you are in the right position financially for you and your goals, right? So with that, we've got one more bonus tip here for you, and that's simply just committing to lifelong learning, right? Whether that's reading books, watching podcasts, listening and watching to our podcast, right? But just commit to always growing and expanding and staying up with new trends or new strategies. And to do that, and if you're ready to actually take control of your financial future, Renji and I created a school community maybe 6 or 7 months ago where we've done a few hours of training and education and put it together on the platform called School, where it's called the Wealth Academy. So if that's something that you guys want to check out for a bunch of resources and just to get connected to a community with a bunch of like-minded people that all want to do better financially. I think most of the people in there are entrepreneurs, but you don't have to be an entrepreneur. But this may be the place for you to come hang out, meet some new people, network, and also learn along the way. So if you guys are watching here on YouTube, check in the description below. We'll have a link that'll direct you guys right to that school community. And if you made it to the end of this video and you're still watching and you haven't liked the video yet, please give us a like, share some love, and subscribe to our podcast as well if you're not already subscribed. And with that, we thank you guys for watching another episode of the Wealth Building for Dummies podcast. We'll see you guys next week. Take care.